Hello, and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you from the year 3994, I'll be your host, Dave Trumbore. And joining me, as always, currently residing in the ruins of Manhattan, it's Sean Paul Ellis. How are you, sir?
David, how are you doing, you double dog?
Oh, doing quite well. Demon Dog, it's Demon Dog. Come on,
Demon Dog, God.
Demon Dogs. And completing our heroic trio today, it's Matt Barron the Mock. How's it going? Didn't expect that one. Exactly, well said. Well said. We speak mock here at Saturday Morning Cartoons. Of course, we are going to be talking about Thundar the Barbarian today. If you didn't pick up on that. This is Sean's pick, and Sean is very excited to talk about it, as are we all. I think we all enjoyed this one. We'll get into it in a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit of history first, and Matt is going to bring you up to speed on that, so take it away.
Okay, so the Thundar the Barbarian... Okay, the show is just so fucking insane. It just absolutely blows my mind. But it ran for 2 seasons. It's a Ruby Spears production,
Of course.
and you can tell pretty much in the first 30 seconds just by the animation style. But 2 seasons, 1980 to 1981, and then 1981 to 82. They had 3 action figures of the main characters, but also with the episodes, there were 21 half-hour episodes, which appeared actually on NBC's Saturday morning lineup. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, surprisingly, not surprising that this is a Ruby Spears production. Kind of surprising there were only 21 episodes. I don't know why. I mean, this was early
Yeah, that is
80s.
shockingly short for us.
Yeah, I don't know why. And it was actually pretty, decent, too. So I'm kind of surprised why it was only 21 instead of, the usual 65 that we see all the time. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird one. There were a couple other things, I think, just from the history, the show notes. There's some discrepancies about, who actually designed these characters. They do kind of have this Hanna-Barbera look to them, but it's definitely a Ruby Spears thing.
There was a second, in my brain, I can feel, I was concerned because, again, last week we did Popples. I was like, I want something different, but I kind of want to go outside of, what's going to be my comfort zone.
Okay.
I had confused this in my head for a while prior to making the decision last week to pick this show, where I had confused this with, Herculoids.
Yeah, and, Mytor and that kind of era of stuff, that, 60s...
Oh, no. I totally got, the Space Ghost.
Well, that's interesting, actually, that you say that, because Alex Toth, I believe, who's also a comic artist and designed the Space Ghost characters, designed the 3 main characters that we'll talk about here in a little bit. So those designs are similar for a reason, because it's the same guy that designed both sets of characters. A lot of people think that Jack Kirby actually designed those characters, and while Kirby was involved with the show, apparently he didn't have quite that much time to dedicate to Thundar the Barbarian, so he actually designed the show's villains, the wizards that populate this world, and a lot of other secondary characters. The main villain that's in this show, by the name of Gemini, looks almost exactly like Kirby's Darkseid character. So if you see some similarities, that's where Kirby's influence kind of came from. Yeah.
Yes.
And then I think that pretty much is it for the show notes. Sean, did you have anything else from voice actors or anything?
No, I mean, I don't. I didn't see anything specific about the voice actors. I'm super. This is again one of those amazing shows where, they drop you in the middle of everything that's going on. You do not need to know anything else beyond what they give you in this opening narration.
And guess what? That's what I'm about to give you, because it's a great synopsis of the show.
Love it.
I'm actually just I'm gonna go ahead and just read this synopsis, because this is the narration you hear to awesome kind of orchestral, powerful music and the opening of the show.
And it's all you get.
Yeah, it's all you get, and then right into it, man. Which I like, honestly. Let me just.
I do too.
Yeah,
I do too.
Let me enjoy the show. Yeah.
And before you get into this, was just enough narration.
Yeah.
Where you understand what the state of the world is right now.
It's not explained, but you understand why.
You understand why. They don't need to give you the details about everything. You'll get the history, a little bit more history.
Yeah.
Not enough, frankly.
No.
But you'll get a little bit more history over the 2 seasons that the show was on. But there's just you know, they introduce some stuff, and you're just like, that's an interesting thing. I'm curious to learn more about it. And like, I think that's the mark of like a good opening, or at least a good show just in general, is like, you're not giving me all the answers. You are allowing me to, you're intriguing me to the point where I'm just like, I want to know more, so I'm going to keep watching.
Yeah, and this show definitely does not get bogged down in exposition by any means. It is just nonstop action. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of exposition to start this off by reading the synopsis narration, and then we're going to get right into it. You guys ready? Here we go. The year 1994. From out of space comes a runaway planet, hurtling between the Earth and the Moon, unleashing cosmic destruction. Man's civilization is cast in ruin. 2,000 years later, Earth is reborn. A strange new world rises from the old, a world of savagery, super science, and sorcery. But one man bursts his bonds to fight for justice. With his companions Ukla the Mock and Princess Ariel, he pits his strength, his courage, and his fabulous sun sword against the forces of evil. He is Thundar the Barbarian.
Oh, beautiful.
And that's it, kids.
Love it.
That's all you need to know.
Love it.
Doesn't make any sense.
Like,
the visuals are amazing. Makes no sense.
Oh my god, that's like, even before we get into the characters, just in this show, like, the thing that really sold me on this was just like the thing that they explain is that like this comet that is hurling between the Earth and the Moon, like as it's doing that, it shatters the moon in fucking half.
Yep, you had me at moon in half.
The moon is.
And also, apparently, it sucks the entire atmosphere off.
Yeah,
like, the best is just this swirling cloud that gets drawn out into space.
It sucks all of our ozone and like everything of our atmosphere, like just out into like cosmic dust and shit in the middle of space.
Hey, solve that CO2 problem. All that shit's gone.
Yeah, exactly. And the moon is just like, I've had enough of this shit, and just shatters in half. But like, I mean, it's just. Here's the thing: is that like I know from like flipping through news and stuff like that. Like within like the last month, there was like reports about like an asteroid or like some
space object
entity, some space object that was going to be hurtling through our solar system, and people were just like, but don't worry, like it's not going to affect. It's going to come close. But like it's not going to affect us, and I think that's what made Thundar so fun to me. Is that like there was a lot of moments in this show where I was just like, yeah, I could see that happening. Like, yeah, okay, cool. Like I get it. Like
that was the one thought that never crossed my mind.
just with the intro, just with the setup of how this happens. Everything else that happens in those 2,000 years, I am continually asking myself, what the fuck?
Well, look, so Baron brought up a great question earlier offline. We were getting ready for the show. Baron, do you remember what that question was?
Yeah, how do you get from a planet where the civilization is entirely destroyed to super science and sorcery 2,000 years later?
That makes no sense.
And I really
do not forget savagery.
Yeah, it's savagery, brother.
I really want to know what 1,000 years later was like.
Yeah, like were they still kind of like, I don't know, piecing it back together? Was there a second apocalypse? Was it just war torn? Like when did sorcery?
Were they trying to get the band back together?
Was it regular science? Was it super science yet?
Yeah, was it regular science?
Was it like mediocre science? Like it's just.
Yeah, it was just like real good science about 1,000 years later. It wasn't quite super yet. It was just real good. I don't know. We tried to,
No. I mean, but what do you think? Like, because I've thought about this a little bit, like today.
Yeah, it's just so weird. Like the visuals of the show, though, are so strange because you've got all these weird creatures, which some of them are your heroes, most of them are your bad guys, obviously. But then you've got things in the background, like a jumbo jet, like a passenger plane crashed into the ground, just sitting there, kind of covered in like vines and stuff, but still very much intact. All the way down to like a pickup truck with its bumper and license plate clearly visible, or a Volkswagen Beetle, or just like skyscrapers. So I mean, all the remnants of our human civilization is still there. And then there's all these like weird rat humanoids and crocodile men and all kinds of crazy shit. I don't know.
And fire whales.
Yeah, fire whales are the best. The interesting thing about this is that like I want to go back to 1980 and be like, do you guys understand how things decay?
Well, did they understand that in 14 years? That's my favorite part of this whole thing.
No, that was
the far-flung year of 1994. Come on.
I feel like Ruby Spears was living in like a day where they were just like, you know what, man, tomorrow's never gonna happen, man. Like it's just not. It's like we gotta live today now, because 1994, this shit's all over. Like I feel like they were just really. Like I feel like they were very pessimistic in their outlook of what the future was going to hold.
It must have been, because man, they don't even like a lot of stories go at least 50, 100 years into the future, and that's clearly not enough. But 14 years, I mean, that's pretty short-sighted. They probably didn't even think they were going to be around in 1994, and they were correct.
Yeah.
So
they were correct. Actually, you know, if you think about this like in a distilled form, it's really like the entire opening narration is a microcosm of the Ruby Spears production company.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like they flew too close and too high. Like they flew too close to the sun and too high into orbit, and then they were just gone and just destroyed and ruined forever.
Here's a fun fact. I actually just wanted to look up Ruby Spears' production history real quick. Founded in 1997, went defunct in 92, and then were refounded in 94, but only for 2 years. So fairly prophetic that the end of the world for Ruby Spears was the early 90s. So well done, actually. I'm going to take back my comment. Well done. You predicted your own destruction, Ruby Spears, so good for you. Oh, man. Now, before we get into like all the crazy characters that populate this world of savagery and super science and sorcery, I guess we should just talk about the main guys real quick so you know who we're talking about.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Who do you want to take? There's one for each of us.
I'm gonna go with Ookla.
You're gonna start right with Ookla, okay?
Because I want to build towards Thundar.
I would build towards Ookla, but that's just me. All right, we'll start with Ookla.
Oh no! Hey, look, you know what? Let's build towards Ookla. Okay. Because I'm doing it. I'm being biased because Ookla was my favorite character.
Yeah, Ookla's the best.
I like Thundar. Thundar is like if you took Prince Adam from. If you took Prince Adam from He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and like you added like the sort of maybe like the
if you added Star Wars elements to him to his story,
hold on, because I thought about this a lot, like because this was like it's the Star Wars franchise, if He-Man and Conan the Barbarian. Like if those franchises just like got like if they just had like a drunk like really sloppy threesome and like muscled out a baby, like it would be Thundar the Barbarian, not just the character but just like the whole show and the concept in general. But man, like Thundar, I'm gonna say this about Thundar. To his credit, he is brash.
Oh yeah.
To a fault. And really, you know, kind of questing with these two companions, like, really there's no strategy involved in how he decides to handle, like, a task. He just, and I mean this literally, he just launches himself into the problem and is just like, you know what, on the way, like, mid-flight, I'll figure it the hell out.
Yeah, there's a moment where like one of his companions like brings up very valid and legitimate questions, like what happens when we find out what this thing does, or when we run into trouble here, or when these people show up. And he's like, "We'll deal with trouble when it comes up." And she's like, "All right, yeah, good, sounds good." She's like,
"Yeah."
She's like,
I believe she actually said, "Can't argue with that."
Yeah, can't argue with that.
Yep. We're talking about Princess Ariel, right?
Yeah.
Like his interactions with her. There are some wonderful moments between Thundar and Princess Ariel, especially where Princess Ariel will say comments like Matt just brought up, was like, "Can't argue with that," and like they will cut to a still of Thundar that like doesn't have any movement, but he's like kind of got a furrowed brow, and he's just got this like, "What are you talking about?"
He doesn't understand a lot of things
that he's wearing. Like it's so wonderful. There's even one comment that he makes, and like I thought about this a little bit. Because, like, on initial viewing, I was like, this seems a little sexist.
I mean,
but
there
then
are moments,
when I thought about it more, because there's one distinct scene, like where Princess Ariel makes a comment, and like Thundar just looks at her with this like, oh, get out of my face, woman. And then the dialogue is, he just kind of looks at like Ukla and he just goes, women. And that's it. And I'm just like, whoa. Like, it threw me off for 2 seconds. But like, it kind of reinforces, as a segue into Princess Ariel, that like the relationship that he has with her is not a sexual relationship.
No. She wants it
to
be.
She wants it to be. Yeah. But like for Thundar's point of view, it is not a sexual relationship.
Which is weird because he's a barbarian, you know?
Yeah,
like you think he'd be into the raping and pillaging of places. He's not so much. No. He's much less Conan, or much less barbarian than Conan.
Actually, you know, I'm going to say he is much more Batman.
That's a stretch.
I don't know
that's
about
a stretch.
that.
I'm going to say more He-Man.
I'm
going to say more He-Man.
I'm reaching. Well,
dude, it's He-Man.
Batman.
No, I was just saying Batman in terms of his morals. Like,
Batman went to college.
There was no barbarian college in the super science future. Anyway, he majored in super science. Yeah.
Barbarian tech. Come on.
Barbarian.
Well, go ahead, Sean. What was your point on that one?
I think that like Thundar has a lot of morals that are very similar.
Oh, okay.
He's like he is constantly trying to save
everyone.
People from the wrong that is on this earth. You know, he feels that he has to be the person in many cases where he is the only how do I want to say this? He is the only person skilled enough to handle
capable.
That situation,
yeah.
despite the fact that he has support from Ukla and Princess Ariel, and in many cases he's very stubborn.
Yeah, definitely.
And finally, he won't kill anybody.
Yeah, I can see that as the Batman.
He just kind of is like, he's like at the end of something. It's again, and we've talked about this like in other. I think like in was it like Dinosaurs and stuff like that, like, you know, where like they capture the villain and they're just like scram.
Yeah, they just
like,
send them away.
Scram!
Yeah.
Like, and that's kind of what Thundar does. Like, he's just like, I don't need to kill you, but I do need to ruin like your day, week, month, year.
Yeah, and I can see that as the Batman angle. I mean, there is definitely a lot of comic book influence in this from that. So I mean, you've got the Conan obviously side of it. The Batman, I don't know that Batman comes into it so much, but I see what you're saying. I'm going to say more He-Man than anything. Just a good hero. Yeah, classic hero.
And maybe it's just because I haven't watched a lot of He-Man recently.
Oh, okay.
I've just been watching a lot of Batman.
I mean, the dude looks exactly like him. That's the weird thing.
I mean, that's what I'm saying, is like in terms of looks, like he looks exactly like Prince Adam. But in terms of some of his morals, I feel like he is taking a page from Batman.
Fair enough. Would Batman, here's a question. Would Batman say things like demon dogs? Lords of Light, things like that. I'm not going to do his war cry.
he would just furrow his brow and just growl.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
would he have a sun sword?
I think, yeah. I mean, the one thing that we should mention before going to Princess Ariel is that we mentioned sort of like the similarities that this show has regarding Star Wars. And one of them is that on Thundar's left wrist, he has this. It looks just like the hilt of a sword, and whenever he pulls it off and holds it in his hand, like it glows and it becomes like this lightning sword. And that's his main weapon.
Yeah, it's a sun sword.
That or just picking shit up and just throwing it.
Well, that's what Ukla likes to do too. Yeah.
Well, Ukla likes to do that too. I mean, they both.
Yeah, with an I-beam. There seems to be a ton of them around.
So many I-beams.
So many.
So that's interesting. We didn't get to see it too much. There's a little bit more on Thundar's backstory. We didn't really get to see it. You kind of get a glimpse of it in the intro, and I think there are other episodes that reveal more of the backstory. But he and Ukla, who we'll talk about in a second, were slaves of this wizard. Is it Sabian? The wizard Sabian? I think that's his name.
Yeah.
That's
Sabian.
It's pretty hilarious.
That's kind of strange. Yeah, it's a little strange. So the wizard Sabian, who's apparently like Princess Ariel was in his I don't know, was captured by him or I don't really know because we didn't get to see a lot of that stuff, but she frees the two of them and gives Thundar this sun sword. That's really the only origin we see of it. So we don't see too much, but that's about it for him.
And I'll be honest, that is enough for me.
Yeah, that's all you need. because he's out doing hero stuff. That's it. With Princess Ariel.
So Princess Ariel.
Well, hold on. I want to give Matt a chance to jump in here if he wants to talk about Princess Ariel.
It's not that I don't want. I wanted to pose the question.
Shoot.
To Matt as he begins to explain Princess Ariel.
Yeah.
What can't she do? Because she's wonderful.
Right. Yeah, she does a lot.
It's just what is she unable to do?
Wait, is that like an actual question, or is that like
it's more rhetorical?
Does she have limits? Because it doesn't seem like
does she have limits? Does she have limits? Because she does not. She has no limits.
Well, apparently the only limit is her ability to be loved by Thundar.
Oh, that's
all she really wants.
That's sad, but true. You want to tell us a little bit about Princess Ariel, there, buddy?
Yeah, so she's a sorceress, and she is the stepdaughter of the evil wizard Sabian.
There he is.
But which seems kind of weird to me. So she's good. Like, he's an evil wizard, stepdaughter. You figure he would have just kind of like brought her over to the evil. You know?
Maybe he tried. I don't know. I didn't see that one. Maybe it's a Cinderella kind of thing going on.
Yeah. Anyway, so apparently she learned a ton of about Earth's history from his library, which is pretty hilarious to me. I mean, you kind of get kind of a look into that in like the first episode, and then like here and there as you go more throughout the series.
Yeah.
But again, like, you know, I guess a library made it 2,000 years, but nothing else did.
Well, the funny part about that is just like, why? Like, why is she telling us about our own civilization as viewers? Like, Thundar doesn't give a shit. He doesn't really understand what's happening. Ookla doesn't
like in the
speak
first
English.
episode, helicopter, whatever.
Oh, man, I can't wait till we get there. But yeah, he doesn't care.
Shit.
She's telling him all this stuff. He doesn't care. So I don't know. She's just trying to like find a way into that cold stone barbarian heart of his. I don't know.
It would have been hilarious in later episodes where he's just like, don't care, like middle of an explanation.
Like Archer, just like
walks
nope.
off camera.
I've had enough.
I'm so tired of your scholarly bullshit.
And then like Ookla does like a really sarcastic like growl or something like
oh,
one of
man.
his
Yeah.
Well, I just want to see Ookla and both Princess Ariel wearing like T-shirts from Barbarian Tech, and he's just like, "I didn't get in," and you're just like, "We get it, Thundar. You're a dum dum."
You're a dum dum, but he got in on football scholarship, so he's okay.
Yeah, or maybe like the GI Bill or something.
Something like that. Please, someone out there Photoshop that. I want that. I want to see that.
Oh, man.
But yeah, speaking of all the things that Princess Ariel can do, so what are her powers? You mentioned that she was a sorceress and she got all the book smarts, but what the hell can she do?
Well, basically she makes things out of light.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like a weird summoning thing. Like in one of the episodes, she kind of like makes a little tornado that sucks people up. Other than that, it's kind of like, you know, just light shields, like bursts of light.
It's kind of like anything goes, though. She's just like, whatever my imagination thinks. She doesn't do a whole lot. I mean, she doesn't get super creative with it, but anytime they come up against, you know... Well, I mean, there's no, like super complex constructs. It's usually just like, oh, there's a chasm here. Let me make a light bridge. Oh.
Well, you know, in her defense...
Yeah, I think it's great.
You're living in, like, this 2,000 years in the future where everything has, like, devolved except for, like, this sorcery super science stuff.
Yeah, everything's devolved except for really advanced scientific stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And robots that are sorcerers.
And robot knights.
But everything else is nothing.
But like in you know, in episode 3, it's like that thing where, like, you know, it's interesting because, like, episode 3 was like the first episode where, like, she gets confronted with a problem and, like, she's like, oh crap, like, she doesn't use her powers right away when she's being attacked by these fire whales. And like, I love saying that word too.
And also it was great because she just stares it down.
Yeah, she stares it down, and so this fire whale swallows her into his like mouth, and then Thundar like jumps in and like just pulls the teeth open and gets her out, and then hops away from the fire whale, and then she's just like, okay, don't worry, I got this. I've recovered from that initial shock. One of these fire whales is coming towards her. She just makes ramps, and she makes a ramp for this fire whale and throws one fire whale into another. And she just looks at Thundar and she goes, 2 down, 2 to go. I was like, You are such a fucking badass.
She's pretty badass.
Like,
yeah.
I
do like her. She has a cool power. She can do anything with it. You don't have to suffer through her like struggling to learn how to control her power or how to manipulate it. She's just got it. She's got it. She's done. She's fine.
You don't have to go through like the insufferable history episode where she's just like, this is how I got my power. Like, I don't give a shit.
Nobody cares.
Like,
just shoot light around.
Nobody cares. Like, I get it. Like, pretty much her power is like the Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah.
For every situation that they encounter that they can't either punch or
or slice their sword through.
Sword slice their way out of, or sun sword slice their way out of. Like, she's just like, oh no, don't worry about it, I got this.
So let's look at that now as teamwork, because she's kind of the brains here, because she has to think about how to use her powers and get them out of a situation or out of a battle.
Definitely.
Thundar, like Sean said, basically he's pretty brash. He just kind of dives into things. However, the remaining member of this team is just beyond Thundar in his aggression. He will attack trees, trains, anything that moves. He just attacks it. Doesn't matter what it is. Helicopters, just smashes the shit out of him while he's in it. That's amazing. So we need to talk about Ukla the Mach. Ukla the Mach. Oh, he's so good. He doesn't speak any English. He's a big, very tall, very hairy, kind of fanged creature that, I don't know, if you were to make a pop culture comparison to some other type creature who doesn't speak and growls a lot and has human companions and is covered in hair and is like 8 feet tall, what would you say he resembles?
Hey Dave, that's a really good question.
Yeah,
I would 100% say Chewbacca.
He's definitely just Chewbacca, and they changed his name. Apparently this was not originally in the story. I think Steven Gerber, is the guy that created this whole thing. Ukla the Mach was not originally meant to be added into the heroic side of things. This was like a network decision that Gerber was not pleased with, but I think it worked out pretty well, because not only because of the success of Chewbacca that you could just play off of, but because Ukla's just a nutty character and they have a lot of fun with him. His name, this is actually interesting, his name is spelled Ookla and then and a Mach, M-O-K, is a species of like these cat-like humanoid creatures. Ukla is actually UCLA. That's where they got the name for him, because the guys that were writing and creating this at the time happened to be having like lunch on UCLA's campus.
Get out.
That's what Wikipedia says, and they never lied to me before. So they looked at it and they were like, oh, Ukla, that's a weird name. Why don't we call him that? So there you go, kids. If you were wondering where Ukla got his name.
I can imagine like the opposition conversation to that being like, well, why don't we drive over to USC and name him You Suck?
Yeah. Yeah. So there it is. But Ukla does not suck, my friends. Ukla is the best. He's my favorite. He's the Dragonstein of this show.
Dave, why is he your favorite?
Because he's the Dragonstein of this show. He's nuts.
I get that.
He just growls the whole time.
What?
Yeah, his growling and stuff kind of irritated me a little bit, I will say that. But I love his personality, because not only does he listen to Thundar, so you know that he's like, he's got a brain, he can actually like listen to things and he knows what's going on. He tries to protect Princess Ariel as best he can, and he just dives into shit. I mean, he will just run down a mountainside and punch a train because he doesn't understand what's happening.
Smash the controls of a helicopter.
Yeah, so say he's piloting a helicopter, much like, I don't know, Chewbacca in a spaceship. Chewbacca at least has like opposable thumbs and can use things and push buttons. Ukla rips controls free of the panel and then just kicks the whole device straight out the front of the helicopter.
He kicks the entire control panel.
He gets so mad. Just smashes it. And he's very durable, kids, because he crash lands this helicopter along with the horses, which doesn't make any sense to me, but he crash lands this helicopter and then just walks out perfectly fine. He's got no problems.
Oh my god.
His only weaknesses, from what I can understand, are this thing called the Death Flower, which has hypnotic abilities that basically stuns him and then puts him under the wizard spell. Ariel's magic, because she can actually like basically knock him out or just like cause him to go unconscious if he's raging or whatever. She can calm him down. And I think just magic in general, because the wizard Gemini, who we'll talk about in a second, he at one point tries to stun all the characters, and he manages to stun Ukla, not Thundar, because of a reason we'll talk about once we get into the episode synopsis or the episode discussion. But he can also stun Ookla with his magic, with his like eye lasers or whatever the hell they are. So,
the other thing that they mention is that he gets real pissed off. Like all Mox hate water.
Oh, I hate water because they're cats. They're cat creatures.
Because they're
kitty cats. Yeah.
So yeah, that was like the funniest. I don't know. In episode 2, when they divulge or reveal that information, you're just like, what? All right, you know what? I'm on board. Like, I love it.
Yeah, Ookla's pretty great. Oh, and Baron brought up this point. I didn't know what this name was beforehand. So Thundar rides a horse. Princess Ariel rides a horse. Ookla, because he's this big cat freak Chewbacca creature. What does he ride? Bat? What does he ride?
No, I forget what it was.
Ah, you bastard.
It's called the Equort.
Yes.
Yeah, Equort or Equort. E-Q-U.
Yeah.
O-R-T. It's this weird.
Yeah.
You had a very descriptive way of painting a picture of this creature. Do you remember?
Horse with Down syndrome.
There it is, kids. It's this like weirdly. It's a beefed up, so it's kind of like a Clydesdale, but it's definitely got a downy face. There's something just kind of off about it. I don't really know.
We are going to get some hate mail from
No, it's just super science, guys. It's super science. You can have super downs in the future if you can have super science. I'm just going to go with it because we're already deep in it here, guys.
I'd like to take this moment to distance myself as far as possible from this show.
Fair enough. Let's talk about Gemini, because he's the other bad guy besides me and Matt on this show. Gemini, he's the big bad. He's got an interesting thing going on with his face. Boy.
Geez.
Yeah. So Gemini.
Does he?
Yeah, Gemini. He's kind of like, how would you describe him other than his face before we get to that?
Well, I kind of...
Eyeshadow enthusiast.
Yes,
very much so. Holy crap.
He has got a tremendous amount of eye makeup.
A lot of guy liner going on for Gemini.
A lot of guy liner.
Oh boy.
I mean,
red and black.
Just very, 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 very frosted above eye look that not only is just above the eye, but just continues around.
Like half his face.
It's the smoky eye style of 3994.
Oh, there it is. Well done.
That is perfect. Yeah. That is so good.
But otherwise, from his eyes, he's basically dressed like some sort of weird night wizard. Like he's dressed in like armor and like the old tunic style, like the medieval tunic. And I don't know why he's got this obsession with knights. He surrounds himself with robotic knights too. I don't know if he thinks he's like a King Arthur character or what, but yeah.
Like there were a lot of parts that there like this made me laugh really hard because it made me think of like the stylized gangs from the movie The Warriors.
Yep.
Yeah, it was like one of those things where it was just like we're called the Big Boppers and we wear like purple bell bottoms and suits, or we're the Baseball Furies and we all dress in like baseball costumes.
Yeah.
It feels like whoever the leader was of whoever the wizard leader was, everybody else kind of like dressed
like him
in very similar fashion.
Or if he didn't have any followers, he just built his own robots and dressed them however he wanted. Yeah, because he doesn't have any friends because he's a dick.
So, yeah, I mean, let's be honest. All the villains that are in this show, all of these sorcerers, like they are all just assholes.
Well,
like
that's the thing too.
Not only the Thundar, but they are like assholes to like
each other,
the people who are below them.
Right.
No, like not. I didn't watch enough to see if there were if there's an interaction between like Gemini or like Mindok or like any of the other sorcerers or evil wizards that are in this.
Right.
But like, I would be curious to see that. I want to continue watching this show to see those interactions. Like I'm fascinated by this. God, yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry, I got off on a tangent.
No, it's cool. It's like my curiosity with that whole thing is that like, okay, so it's not just like a wizard or a sorcerer. It's just like this plague of sorcerers that happens to like be taking over the world at this point. It's just like, holy shit, the only humans that are left are battling all these different sorcerers. So one isn't bad enough, and now you've got all of them out there. That's kind of cool. I thought that was pretty interesting. There's just like these weird clans led by sorcerers that are just like wreaking havoc on this place. It is just a strange but really, really cool storyline. I like that. I kind of wanted to watch more. Didn't get a chance to. Do you want to jump right into this first episode? I believe we all watched The Secret of the Black Pearl. Is that correct? Or did you guys watch others?
Yes.
Okay, cool. yeah, I mean, do you want to talk about that one? We've kind of teased the listeners a little bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd like to I think we can kind of sum it up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there is a lot to this episode, and I feel like if we were to kind of hunker down on this, I mean, here's the thing: is the pacing for these episodes is if you were to just do a bunch of Adderall.
Yeah.
Just if you were to just well, I mean, these episodes are moving faster than Turbo Teen.
Oh boy!
I mean, they are nuts, and I think that's the pacing is really what pulled me in for Secret of the Black Pearl, because there are just moments, and we talked about this right before we started, where they will have resolved something, and then you're just okay, cool, what's next? If they finish this, then what else is going to be next? And Thundar is just Ookla, Ariel, we ride! And they are just off.
Yeah.
They are just gone. And it's pretty rad. And you don't need to see there's not a ton of establishing shots of them going somewhere. It's 2 seconds later they're just we're here.
Well, I mean, you're introduced to them.
It's hardcore heroic ADD.
Oh yeah,
is what it's been.
Great, man. I mean, you're introduced to these guys just it's this heroic music, and then they're just riding through the forest, and he's we can't stop, and they're I can barely see, and he's the wizards won't expect us to ride at night, and I'm all right, I don't know what's going on, but I'm on board. Let's just keep going.
Yeah.
And then crazy shit
What's
happens.
the literary device in medias res? It just dumps you in the middle.
Oh, I don't know,
and
but that sounds
you just
good.
Yeah, that's exactly what it
sounds
is.
scholarly.
I
like it
to make you look intelligent.
Thanks, Princess Ariel.
You're welcome. But it's one of those things where it's just any Chuck Palahniuk book, usually uses that as a literary device where they just drop you in the middle and they're just you know what, forget about all the other crap. We'll explain it if it's necessary.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this show did. And it's not in a boring, it never got boring for me.
No.
So pacing was a big thing. I only want to point out there was one really weird establishing shot in terms of them going places on their horses, which was in, I think it was Harvested Doom. At one point they were all on their horses and they were heading in one specific direction, and there is the top of a fountain, the decorative top that might be a cherub,
right,
on a fountain, and it's just the decorative top of a fountain just on the ground, and you see all three of them on their horses one by one just ride down a hill, and then the horse jumps over this cherub fountain thing and then keeps them. Just all three of them just jumping over this cherub thing, one after the other, and it was a bizarre thing. But here, I feel somebody took a lot of time and energy to draw that top of a cherub thing, and they were just this is getting in the show. Put my foot down. You know what? You guys got to put a Statue of Liberty in the first episode. I'm putting this cherub in Harvest of Doom. No ifs, ands, or buts. Sorry.
Put a lot of work into this, guys.
This cherub, or I walk.
It's cool though because they do try to work in things from quote unquote our civilization. So things like the Empire State Building, the Twin Towers, RIP. They work them in there too. So a lot of stuff that, and they travel around too. If you look at the episode synopses, if you look at the list, they hop around the country. All different cities. I mean, they go to New York, they go to Boston, they go to Atlanta.
It's awesome.
Yeah, they go everywhere. I'm wondering why, when I played the Fallout games, that Thundar, Ariel,
oh my God,
never showed up. They never showed up.
That is no. I'm sorry. That is watching this show. I had the exact same feeling as I did the first time I played Fallout 2. I was this all seems super familiar, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's just an alternate reality, and I love going to some place that is very different, but at the same time, I have a familiarity with the environment and everything that's there. Oh no, there's a groundling rat person. Let's have fun with this.
And we do have fun with the groundlings. Yeah, it is cool though. We were talking about this before. This was last week when we were deciding if we wanted to review this show or something different. And I was guys, you got to check this out, because when I watched this show, I don't remember the intro, because this popped up on Cartoon Network or Toonami or something like that. And I just remember watching bits of this show, but I never had any kind of it's actually really strange going back and thinking about it, because I never had any like foundation of what the hell was going on in this show. I thought it was like Mytor or the Herculoids or any of those kind of like barbarian type shows where it was just a barbarian and a sorceress and a creature fighting against bad guys. I had no clue it had this like post-apocalyptic, far-flung future Earth setting to it. And when I was watching it as a kid, or even as like a young adult or whatever, I was just like, why are there like cars and shit in there? Like what is this just like bad animation? Did they just like reuse old shit? Like I didn't understand it until this like very week when, you know, I actually got to watch the intro for the first time. Yeah, that was pretty cool. But they do have a lot of fun with it. They bring in, well, Sean mentioned the groundlings, which is one of the first kind of like minor enemies that we run across. And there's a lot of things like this. Yeah.
So like that was the whole thing, is like, you know, Thundar and his entourage are riding through this forest, middle of the night. They hear this human. They go and save him from these like rat-like
without pause
people called groundling. Like, and I'm talking about like this in terms of like pacing of the show. Like the dude that they save is a human, and he's immediately like, "Gather round, let me show you this amazing thing I have." And he shows them, like immediately. It's just like, I don't know if like you like. Here's the thing, like I feel like sometimes like my mom is like a skeptic.
Okay.
In terms of like interactions with like people, like if my mom had been rescued in the middle, she would have been like, "Get away from me! I don't know you for anything. You look nice and you saved me, but you could still be bad people."
So basically, don't put your mom in charge of the Black Pearl.
Do not put my mom in charge of the Black Pearl, please. But like this guy just basically is just like, "Hey, here's this Black Pearl. Take this. It needs to go to Manhattan."
Like, the ruins of Manhattan with the human civilization.
And like that was like the first thing where I was just like, "Oh shit, they're talking about Manhattan."
Oh
aren't they?
yeah.
And they Thundar gladly accepts this quest, and then immediately just Ookla, Ariel, we ride, and like they're just gone. And like they get to Manhattan, and this is what's cool, is that they do these kind of like slow pans, or they have some of these like stills where like you see Thundar like kind of against like the backdrop of like this crazy world, and you see these things and you're just like, oh, that is really cool. Like in episode 2 it happens where like you see him standing like on the bridge like in front of that train, and you see like the moon cracked in the sky behind him.
Right.
Like in this they do this like first episode they show this like slow pan of like all of Manhattan, and like the Statue of Liberty is like in the water, and all these things are just like fucked up.
Yeah, and it's cool design and cool visual style too. It's pretty neat.
It's the first time that they established that like in this show that like other than the intro that like you were on Earth and this is a fucked up Earth.
Yeah, I got to tell you one thing before we get to Manhattan, before we talk about the Pearl and what it does and all that stuff. The moment that I was not necessarily hooked, but just made me laugh out loud. Okay, so we've got these groundlings, these rat creatures. Thundar and his buddies just kicked the shit out of them in the forest because they were just using like clubs and stuff, and they were just like rat humanoids. They chased them all back underground. Well, they contact their buddy Gemini, who, we never talked about this before. He has a head that flips around, and he has 2 heads, so he's got 2 faces.
Oh, yeah.
One on each side of his head. And whenever he's pissed off, it flips around.
Matt, both heads are enthusiasts of
eyeshadow.
There it is.
Yep.
Yeah, he loves the makeup.
One much more than the other.
Yes,
and,
very much
okay,
so.
hang on. I've got to go like, Greek mythology on this here.
Do it.
If he was going to have 2 faces on one head, he should have been called Janus instead of Gemini.
Ooh.
I don't know. Maybe there was copyright infringement with the Romans.
Pick up a goddamn book.
There was copyright infringement with the Greeks?
Just bullshit.
Yeah.
With the Greeks.
With a polytheistic face that hasn't been around forever?
Janus would have been good. But Janus...
For how many years?
Janus sounds like somebody from like
years.
Three's Company or something. Janus.
Janus.
That's not exactly a villain's name. Like, oh, Janus, the wizard Janus. Just like a housewife name. Gemini, on the other hand. But anyway, Janus...
Janus, we're rat people. What do you expect from us?
So he gives the rat people... This is my favorite part. He apparently outfits the rat people with weapons and vehicles. What are these weapons and vehicles? Still clubs. Still wooden clubs that just happen to shoot lasers. Because why not? So you got clubs that shoot lasers, and they're riding frickin' motorcycles. So they come riding these motorcycles out of the woods, and Thundar at this point has been like, Ariel, Ukla, you go on ahead. I'll take care of this. I'm like, why are you doing this? There's no reason for you to be doing this. He just stands there and just like wipes out 50 of these groundlings with laser clubs and motorcycles. Which that was the point of absurdity that I just loved.
Well, that was, I thought, like, the thing that made me wildly giggle is the fact that, like, he's just like, what was he calls them, instead of motorcycles, he calls them motor steeds.
Motor steeds, yeah.
He's like, these motor steeds, and then, like, Ariel's
She's
like,
they're motorcycles.
They're motorcycles?
Like, motorcycles. I love that he knows the word motor, though. Like,
yeah,
he knows the word motor, so he's clearly familiar with the six-cylinder block engine, but
right.
does not know about motorcycles.
Do you think it's something where like Ariel's occasional disdain or correction of Thundar is from like a place where she's just like where do you think? I'm sorry. Do you think it is disdain, or do you think that she's just like, I'm really concerned that you might be dumb and I'm trying to educate you?
I think she's just really into him, and she is concerned that he's real dumb, so she's just trying to get the ins and also to educate this dumb.
Because there's some moments that I'm just like, oh, that's such a sick dig.
Well, look, like, I'll tell you one particular moment. Okay, so at some point during this hoopla, they enter the subway system. They make a bunch of goofy comments about movie posters that are on the wall and stuff like that.
Yes.
But then, in a very stereotypical fashion,
do you remember what the movie?
Oh yeah,
was?
Absolutely.
Jaws 9.
Jaws 9.
Yep.
That's so
Jaws
good, man.
9.
So good. Movie. Thundar's like, movie? Yeah, he knows what a motor is, but not a movie. Anyway, so there's a stereotypical moment where Ariel gets kidnapped, and she's very helpless in this moment, and is at the mercy of her kidnappers, and has to wait for the two big strong heroes to come save her. The funniest part is when they actually do. She basically just more or less gets herself out of prison. She just zaps. I love when she zaps Gemini because she just locks his helmet closed with her magic. Like, one of the weirdest spells. Like, why would he have a lock on there to begin with? But she just locks his helmet closed, and then he's completely, like, helpless. So it was interesting. Like, she did get kidnapped. She was the damsel in distress, but then she was very capable once she was actually, like, rescued. So I was kind of on the fence about how they handled her character. Because normally, most of the time, she kicks ass. But then there's stupid stuff like that where she kind of gets kidnapped and has to be rescued. So, I don't know. That was a little strange. But, yeah.
I mean, like, I think just to go and continue with, like, some of the things that happens from like that point forward is just like she's captured. They go to like rescue her in a helicopter, which is amazing because there's like a Matrix moment where like suddenly like Thundar's like, whoa, I know how to pilot like a fucking helicopter.
Yeah, out of nowhere.
Just do.
Out of nowhere. So the helicopter comes from Gemini and his like robot knights. So that is fine. But then I was like, when Thundar was like, oh, I know how to pilot this thing. I'm like, you didn't know what a motorcycle was 5 minutes ago. How do you know how to pilot a helicopter? You didn't know what a movie was, you dumb. How do you know how to pilot a helicopter? He like looks at it and he's like, oh, this makes it go up and fly. And we're like, oh, well, all right, do what you got to do.
Yeah, fair enough.
Hey, maybe turn it over to Ukla the Mock. He seems like a good pilot, yeah?
Which, hey, he does. And
does he?
Like,
certainly landed it just fine.
Well, you can only fly it once, these helicopters. They only fly once.
They perform this like amazing heroic feat of saving Princess Ariel, and then they get like he grabs her and like Princess Ariel's like, I hope you have a good way of getting out of it. Like, I hope you have like a plan to get out of here. She like they look out a window and Ukla is piloting this helicopter and he's like like can't fucking figure it out. The entire time Ukla is like growling and screaming at shit. I'm substituting in my brain everything that I think that he's saying, and I'm just like, I love this.
Yeah.
I love every because I'm just like, oh, these controls, these dumb humans. Ah!
He's probably like very like depressed but eloquent about it. He's like, it's probably something like, well, I could use my superior intellect to pilot this helicopter and rescue my fellow individuals. However, I've been doing this for a number of years and has not got me anywhere. Perhaps I will just crash into the ground and end this all now in a fiery blaze. That's what I like to think.
And possibly after this, maybe somebody could scratch the mane and my ears.
If I happen to survive, someone needs to take this thorn out of my paw because it is driving me fucking insane.
I feel a belly rub would be in order for the end of the successful mission.
But basically, he just crashes this fucking helicopter into the ground and then walks out scot-free while bringing the horses.
Here's the thing. Yeah. You think that's crazy, all right? You flash back to the top of the tower, and Thundar is looking at Princess Arrow, and he's like, well, I got a backup plan, which is to jump like
80 stories.
200 feet down, just down the side of fucking Gemini's base onto a horse.
Yeah,
like no problem. He's just like, boom.
Just balls down on that horse.
Just right into that.
To their
credit, first.
Yeah, to their credit, the animators made the horses kind of go like, ooh, they kind of shrugged a little bit like, ooh, that was slightly unpleasant. I don't know if I appreciate that. Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. In 2,000 years, horses are super strong.
Horses are solid.
That would have been
apparently so are testicles.
Yeah, exactly.
Humans in general. Like, if that would have been today, and you would have fallen like 80 stories onto the back of a horse, you would have split that horse in half.
Yeah, and then you just would have been a puddle on the ground.
You'd be dead.
Yeah, super dead. But it was great. I loved it. The horses survived.
Like they get to this point where like they return everybody back to Manhattan, and the people, the humans that are in Manhattan are just like, they welcome them back as
and you think you're done at this point, right?
Saviors,
right? You think like, oh, great episode, really cool. The heroes win. They got the black magic pearl that like negates Gemini's powers. Everything's cool. Everything's good to go. Maybe not. Maybe not so much.
Nope. Because all of a sudden Gemini shows back up.
Oh,
and
shit.
He's just like, hey, guess what? I'm sick of dealing with your crap.
Yeah.
Like, take this. And he reanimates the Statue of Liberty.
Before the Ghostbusters did it. I should say that. Before the Ghostbusters did it. This is 1980 or 81. Good stuff.
And I should stand corrected. He doesn't reanimate. He animates.
No. It's a little-known fact that the Statue of Liberty was a giant human that was just petrified and became the statue. Yes. This is a historical fact.
He all of a sudden, the Statue of Liberty just starts attacking them, and here is where the brashness that we've mentioned about Thundar really enters in, because this is a ridiculous challenge. Like, this is suddenly the biggest threat that they have faced so far.
Yeah.
All right, is this looming Statue of Liberty that is like, I don't know how big the Statue of Liberty is. It doesn't matter, but like.
Well, like Thundar says, it's like fighting a mountain because they can't do anything about it. Yeah.
Right, and so like this mountain is like coming onto them, and
ooh, sexy.
Like, it's the Statue of Liberty.
It was aggressive.
Yeah, the Statue of Liberty's torch becomes like a flamethrower,
awesome.
and just starts. Yeah, it was rad, and so like. All of this stuff is happening, all right? And so what does Thundar do?
Well,
in his...
First he slashes her foot with his sun sword, and he's like, it's like fighting a mountain. Ookla has my favorite reaction, because he just picks up... What does he pick up? Was it an I-beam?
Yeah, it was an I-beam.
Picks up an I-beam, crawls and climbs his way up the Statue of Liberty, clonks it in the head, and then just falls off. Onto its foot and like passes out because he lands on his damn head. I loved it. I love that part. It's such a dum-dum. And then basically, this is interesting too, because you don't see this in your standard, your heroic, heroes versus villains cartoon shows. The heroes pretty much lose. They more or less lose at this point. You don't usually get to see that. Right. I thought that was pretty interesting. So yeah, go ahead and say what you can wrap that up with how he kind of saved the day. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, like, it sort of seemed, it was kind of like a Pyrrhic victory.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he ends up taking the Black Pearl that, like, they've been protecting and, like, questing after this entire time, and he just throws it into the Statue of Liberty, and, like, I guess the energy that the Black, like, Pearl creates, like, it negates the energy and magic that is in the Statue of Liberty, and it also, like, trickles over and affects Gemini and, like, gets rid of everything. And so, they're like.
But it also consumes the Black Pearl. Like, we don't know what happened to Gemini, but it consumes the Black Pearl.
It just destroys it.
Yeah.
Like, which blows my mind, because I was just like, like that would have been like throwing like a baseball at the Statue of Liberty. Like, at no point in time, like, I mean, here's the thing. It's a magical device.
Yeah.
They threw a magical device at a magic Statue of Liberty.
It's like matter and antimatter.
And it just exactly. And so it consumed it, and it took care of it, and then that was it. And like Thundar like apologizes.
Yeah.
And is just like, hey guys, super sorry about that. We kind of destroyed the thing that like you needed. And they're like, don't worry about it. You know what? Now that we know that it works, now that we know what it does, which was the question that they were trying to answer, he's just like, we'll try harder to find more.
I love that.
And
that was like
Thundar
the very American, like, can-do attitude. He's like, now that we know that it works, we'll try even harder. I was like, all right, yeah, you do that. You starving pile of humanity, go ahead. Jesus.
Thundar, without missing a beat, just goes, Ookla, Ariel,
we ride!
It's
so
like,
good.
They're off again.
Literally off into the sunset to the Harvest of the Doom, or Harvest of Doom, whatever it was, Doom Harvest. Oh boy. Did you guys, before we wrap this discussion up, have any more comments or want to see anything in from other episodes you watched? Because I didn't get to watch too many more, so.
I'm interested, as I mentioned before, like they introduce, at least in the first 3 episodes, they seem to introduce kind of like a different wizard in each episode. I'm kind of curious. One of the big things that I want to do is I want to watch more to see if there's ever like wizard on wizard action.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's right.
That sounds like some Rule 34 action. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so.
Speaking of,
because
now
it's talk about Rule 34.
Yeah, briefly, because it's become a staple of this show, and I don't know if you guys like it or not, but here it is. Man, there is a lot, and boy, is it graphic, and some of it doesn't make any sense anatomically. But what are you gonna do? It's when you got a mock involved. What rhymes with mock? Yeah, buddy. TikTok.
Oh boy.
Yeah, there's a lot of craziness going on out there. You kids. You crazy drawn kids.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you, DeviantArt.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, I don't know. Like for the reasons that we continue to mention about this show, the pacing, like the insanity of some of these villains and their henchmen is just awesome. And the fact that like if you check out the Wikipedia page, just the fact that like every episode they're in a different geographic location.
And they feature it too. That's a cool part. They don't just say like, "Oh, we're here in Atlanta." Like they feature it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. And it seems really interesting. Like I know that in the second season, I think there's an episode where they're like in the UK.
Yeah.
And like I have so many questions like how the hell did they get to the UK? Like because they seem to be pretty like Northern American bound and also Mexico.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious to like here's the thing is that like I'm going to keep watching this show to answer those questions, and even if those questions never get answered, I'm totally cool with that.
Well, you got 21 episodes to go through and see if it answers them or not. But anything else from the show you guys have before we move on to our conclusion here? Nothing else from the show? I don't think I have anything else. No miscellaneous little details or creepy Rule 34 mentions. I got nothing else.
Oh my gosh. The one thing that you mentioned like when we were discussing everything before, so there is some reused animation that is in this show.
Okay.
In this show, and it becomes very apparent whenever you see Princess Ariel get on a horse.
Yes.
And so it occurs 2 times in the first episode, and it occurs again 2 times in the second episode, and I believe maybe once in the third. But it's Princess Ariel when she runs up behind the horse, and then she like kind of puts her hands like on the she jumps up and puts her hands on the back of the horse and like throws
vaults
herself,
over it.
Jumps up.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so as she's vaulting, it is like you can tell and notice it because it is like deliberately janky.
It goes back to like that Brave
nature.
Star
like,
kind of janky, like sideways walk kind of thing. It's like a weird herky jerky motion. Yeah, it's real strange.
So
Fun
they reuse that multiple times, even in the same episode. And like the first time I saw it, I was just like, "Is she okay? Like what's going on?" And then they used it again. I was like, "Oh no, it's just fine. This is just somebody being cheap."
It's just what it is. Yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't like her and Thundar just had a little tryst off camera. I don't know.
Yeah. Nope.
Oh no.
Nope.
Good stuff. But yeah, this one's fun. I'm gonna go recommendations. I'm gonna say definitely check this one out because it's a lot more fun. There's a lot more depth to the story than I ever thought there was. So it's a fun one. Go check it out. What do you guys say?
Definitely watch.
You're a definite, and Sean, I know you are, but what do you got to say?
Yeah, I'm an absolutely.
Cool.
I think that this is fun, and it's interesting, and I'm glad that I made a pick that did not include dinosaurs.
Yeah, well, it could have. Surprisingly, it did not. At least the ones that we watched.
I mean,
dinosaurs could have worked their way back into the future. Yeah.
Here's the thing. I'm glad that I enjoyed this for the two reasons. It did not initially include dinosaurs or feature dinosaurs as the main character. Right. And I couldn't find a drug episode either.
No, I mean the closest one I think is like the Doom Harvest. Yeah, because that was kind of like these weird hypnotic flowers, but not really.
They were poppies.
Yeah,
come on,
yeah.
They were
but it wasn't overt. I mean, that was actually a decent drug episode if you're going to do that because it shows the dangers of them without like hitting you over the head with it. So it was actually pretty good.
But it also kind of misled me that like if I ever am under the influence like that, I can just get in like a lake and it'll just instantly get rid of whatever ails me.
Yeah, you can also just go into a rage and just start attacking your companion. So, either way, whatever you want to do there, bud.
Yeah.
Good times. Yeah, check this one out. We're going to have links up because I believe Warner Brothers actually has put these together on a complete series collection, so we're going to have a link up on our site. If you're interested, you can check it out. You can also find these on like Vimeo and some on YouTube. You can find them different places, but if you want them all together, please consider our referral link because it helps to fund the podcast. And let's see. I think it's time for plugs. So you guys have anything coming up in the next couple of weeks? Sean, let's start with you.
Oh man, do I? Starting this Wednesday, I believe that is this the 24th?
Yeah, that'll be the airing of this particular podcast as well. So today, if you're listening today,
today, the 24th of September until the 27th of September, I and a group of people, we are putting on what is called the District Improv Festival. Right. It is the second annual District Improv Festival that will be in our nation's capital. We have shows that are going Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and then all day Saturday. 30 different troops. 10 of them are from the D.C. area. Nice. 20 of them are from around the country. And it all concludes with TJ and Dave, who, if you don't know who TJ and Dave is, please Google them. You actually probably recognize the majority of their faces from like their commercial work and other stuff that they've done. Cool. But they are just geniuses and brilliant, and we couldn't be happier to have them here. So you can check out the schedule and look for tickets at districtimprov.org.
Awesome. We're going to have all that info up on our page. Matt, do you have anything coming up in the next couple of weeks?
I don't have anything coming up that it's eventful in any way, but what I do have is next week's pick.
Ooh, you jumping ahead of yourself, sucker. We'll get there.
Ahead.
We're going to tease the listeners. You got to stick around for a little bit to hear that one. I don't know what it is yet either, so I'm going to stick around too. So we'll just hang out together and be buddies. I don't have any plugs, but Matt mentioned this last week, and I feel like it's important to bring up. We talked about it a little bit, so I just want to mention it again. We are Saturday Morning Cartoons, and that's morning with a U. The reason that we decided to kind of style ourselves that way, other than just the very obvious pun, is that we really do miss these cartoons. We miss the ones that aired on Saturday mornings on network TV that everybody could watch. You never knew exactly what was going to come on. You never knew how long it was going to last. You never knew what the seasons were going to be, but it was fun. It's something that like our generation and generations before us had to look forward to, and they can look back on with nostalgia, and they can talk about it. That is over, people. That is done. Yeah. As of this coming Saturday, the 27th, Matt found this information. Vortex on the CW, which is the last Saturday morning, Sunday morning cartoon block, is done. They're done. They're pulling the plug. They're going to replace it with a series of edutainment programming and reality series. Just a bunch of live-action garbage, like Caesar Milan talking about dogs and like these random veterinary adventures and just, I mean, it's fine, I guess. It's not exactly educational. It's definitely not as entertaining as Thundar the Barbarian. But, it's unfortunate because the networks have kind of lost the ratings battle and the economic battle to these cable networks where kids can just find these cartoons pretty much 24/7. And that's just the state of the world. It's just unfortunate that they're losing that kind of shared experience of a Saturday morning where you sit down, get a bowl of cereal, Just watch cartoons, man, and just be a kid and have fun. So that's unfortunate, but we will still be here. And you can find us at SaturdayMorningCartoons.com, morning with a U. You can find us on Twitter at MorningToons. You can check out some awesome, crazy GIFs and lots of crazy stuff from cartoons, past and present and future, on our Tumblr page at SaturdayMorningCartoons.tumblr.com. If you want to pester me on Twitter, you can do so at DrClawMD. And if you want to find Sean, he'll be at...
Feel free to be a jerk to me at Sean Paul Ellis on both Instagram and Twitter.
And if you want to talk to Matt about Down syndrome horses, you can find him on Twitter.
Oof.
Yep, bringing it back.
At Bag of Sandwiches, and I'll just start forwarding it right to my lawyer.
That's the plan. Now, since I left off with Matt, and he teased you earlier, Matt has the pick for next week's show. So, buddy, what are you going to make us watch next week?
It is going to be Jawsome.
Oh, no!
Wait a minute, is that a thing? Is that like a cartoon, or is that just a weird description? Hold on, I don't understand. Is that a description of the show we're going to watch? Is it going to be Street Sharks? Is it Street Sharks?
Hey, yeah, Matt, it's Street Sharks, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you can't just say Jawsome, because fuck, the 80s, that could have been a show. Like, there could have been, stay tuned for Jawsome. I'd have been like, all right, that's probably a thing.
Street Sharks, Lane Sharks.
Dude, no, I'm just saying that next week is going to be Jawsome because we're watching Street Sharks.
Oh, there it is, everybody. It's the pick for next week. We're watching Street Sharks. I remember being a fan. I don't remember if it was ironically or not, but Street Sharks. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Good stuff.
Cool.
There it is, kids. So if you want to know a little bit more about Street Sharks, since there will be no more Saturday morning cartoons on TV, you'll just have to listen to them here on Saturday Morning Cartoons. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
I know from like flipping through news and stuff like that, like within like the last month, there was like reports about like an asteroid or like something, some
space object
entity, some space object that was going to be hurtling through our solar system, and people were just like, but don't worry, like it's not going to affect. It's going to come close, but like it's not going to affect us. And I think that that's what made Thundar so fun to me, is that like there was a lot of moments in this show where I was just like, yeah, I could see that happening. Like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, I get it. Like
that was one thought that never crossed my mind.
just with the intro, just with the setup of how this happens. Everything else that happens in those 2,000 years, I am continually asking myself, what the fuck?
Well, look, so Baron brought up a great question earlier offline. We were getting ready for the show. Baron, do you remember what that question was?
Yeah, how do you get from a planet where the civilization is entirely destroyed to super science and sorcery 2,000 years later?
That makes no sense.
And I really
do not forget savagery.
Yeah, it's savagery, brother.
I really want to know what 1,000 years later was like.
Yeah, like were they still kind of like, I don't know, piecing it back together? Was there a second apocalypse? Was it just war torn? Like when did sorcery?
Were they trying to get the band back together?
Was it regular science? Was it super science yet?
Yeah, was it regular science?
Was it like mediocre science? Like it's just.
Yeah, it was just like real good science about 1,000 years later. It wasn't quite super yet. It was just real good. I don't know. We tried to,
No. I mean, but
characters. The main villain that's in this show by the name of Gemini looks almost exactly like Kirby's Dark Side character. So if you see some similarities, that's where Kirby's influence kind of came from. Yeah.
Yes.
And then I think that pretty much is it for the show notes. Sean, did you have anything else from like voice actors or anything?
No, I mean I don't. I didn't see anything specific about the voice actors. This is again one of those amazing shows where like they drop you in the middle of everything that's going on. Like you do not need to know anything else beyond what they give you in this opening narration.
And guess what? That's what I'm about to give you because it's a great synopsis of the show.
So this is love it.
I'm actually just gonna go ahead and just read this synopsis because this is the narration you hear to awesome kind of orchestral, powerful music and the opening of the show.
And it's all you get.
Yeah, it's all you get. And then right into it, man, which I like, honestly. Like, let me just...
I do too. Yeah, I do too. Like,
let me enjoy the show. Yeah.
And before you get into this was like just enough narration where like you understand what the state of the world is right now.
It's not explained, but you understand why.
Like you understand why. Like they don't need to give you like the details about everything. You'll get the history, a little bit more history.
Yeah.
Not enough, frankly.
No.
But you'll get a little bit more history over like, the 2 seasons that the show was on. But like there's just they introduce some stuff and you're just like, that's an interesting thing. I'm curious to learn more about it. And like I think that's the mark of like a good opening, or at least a good show just in general, is like you're not giving me all the answers. You are allowing me you're intriguing me to the point where I'm just like, I want to know more, so I'm going to keep watching.
Yeah, and this show definitely did.
Episodes, which appeared actually on NBC's Saturday morning lineup. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, surprisingly, not surprising that this is a Ruby Spears production. Kind of surprising there were only 21 episodes. I don't know why. I mean, this was like, early
that
80s.
is shockingly short for us.
Yeah, I don't know why. And it was actually pretty, like, decent, too. So I'm kind of surprised why it was only 21 instead of, the usual 65 that we see all the time. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird one. There were a couple other things, I think, just from the history, the show notes. There's some discrepancies about like who actually designed these characters. They do kind of have this Hanna-Barbera look to them, but it's definitely a Ruby Spears thing.
There was a second, like in my brain, I can feel like I was concerned because like again, like last week we did Popples. I was like, I want something different, but I kind of want to go outside of like what's going to be my comfort zone.
Okay.
I had confused this in my head for a while prior to making the decision last week to pick this show, where I had confused this with like Herculoids.
Yeah, and like Mytor and that kind of era of stuff, that like 60s.
Oh no, I totally got like the Space Ghost.
Well, that's interesting actually that you say that, because Alex Toth, I believe, who's also a comic artist and designed the Space Ghost characters, designed the 3 main characters that we'll talk about here in a little bit. So those designs are similar for a reason, because it's the same guy that designed both sets of characters. A lot of people think that Jack Kirby actually designed those characters, and while Kirby was involved with the show, apparently he didn't have quite that much time to dedicate to Thundar the Barbarian. So he actually designed the show's villains, the wizards that populate this world, and a lot of other like secondary. Does not get bogged down in exposition by any means. It is just non-stop action. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of exposition to start this off by reading the synopsis narration, and then we're going to get right into it. You guys ready? Here we go. The year 1994. From out of space comes a runaway planet, hurtling between the Earth and the Moon, unleashing cosmic destruction. Man's civilization is cast in ruin. 2,000 years later, Earth is reborn. A strange new world rises from the old, a world of savagery, super science, and sorcery. But one man bursts his bonds to fight for justice. With his companions Ukla the Mock and Princess Ariel, he pits his strength, his courage, and his fabulous sun sword against the forces of evil. He is Thundar the Barbarian.
Oh, beautiful.
And that's it, kids.
Love it.
That's all you need to know.
Love it.
Doesn't make any sense.
Like,
the visuals are amazing. Makes no sense.
Oh my god. That's like, even before we get into the characters just in this show, like, the thing that really sold me on this was just like, the thing that they explain is that like this comet that is hurtling between the Earth and the Moon, like as it's doing that, it shatters the moon in fucking half.
Yep, you had me at moon in half.
The moon is.
And also, apparently, it sucks the entire atmosphere off.
Yeah,
like, the best is just this swirling cloud that gets drawn out into space.
It sucks all of our ozone and like everything of our atmosphere, like just out into like cosmic dust and shit in the middle of space.
Hey, solve that CO2 problem. All that shit's gone.
Exactly. And the moon is just like, I've had enough of this shit, and just shatters in half. But like, I mean, it's just. Here's the thing: is that like I know.
Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you from the year 3994, I'll be your host, Dave Trumbore. And joining me as always, currently residing in the ruins of Manhattan, it's Sean Paul Ellis. How are you, sir?
David, how are you doing, you double dog?
Oh, doing quite well. Demon Dog, it's Demon Dog. Come on,
Demon Dog, God.
Demon Dogs. And completing our heroic trio today, it's Matt Barron the Mock. How's it going? Didn't expect that one. Exactly, well said. Well said. We speak mock here at Saturday Morning Cartoons. Of course, we are going to be talking about Thundar the Barbarian today. If you didn't, pick up on that. This is Sean's pick, and Sean is very excited to talk about it, as are we all. I think we all enjoyed this one. We'll get into it in a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit of history first, and Matt is going to bring you up to speed on that, so take it away.
Okay, so the Thundar the Barbarian... Okay, the show is just so fucking insane. It just absolutely blows my mind. But it ran for 2 seasons. It's a Ruby Spears production, and you can tell pretty much in the first 30 seconds just by the animation style. But 2 seasons, 1980 to 1981, and then 1981 to 82. They had 3 action figures of the main characters, but also with the episodes, there were 21 half-hour